All right, this is, excuse me, Module 4, Lesson 6. We're going to be just doing a brief review of everything that we have done so far. The last couple days we've been talking about percent increase and percent decrease, and talking about when the percentage is added to 100, when the percentage is subtracted from 100, and when to keep the percentage just as it is in the problem. So I'm going to give you some clues as we go through this to help you identify when to add to 100, when to subtract from 100, and when just to leave it the way it is. So example 1 says the 42 students who play wind instruments represent 75% of the students who are in band. How many students are in the band? Okay, so let's go back through. That was our initial read. Let's go back through and read it again and identify part, whole, and percent. So the 42 students who play wind instruments in the band, is that the part, the percent, or the whole? Well, obviously it's not the percent, but the kids that play wind instruments do not make up the whole band. So this is the part of the students in the band. They represent 75%, obviously that's the percent, of, that word of means that whatever follows is going to be our whole, which would be all the students in the band. Now, there's no indication that we are increasing by 75%, decreasing by 75%, so we're going to use the percentage right from the problem. So let's make our cheat sheet. So the part is 42. The percentage is 75%, is our x. So here's our cheat sheet. Let's set up our equation. So part equals percent times whole. So our part is 42.75 times x. All right, let's solve for x. We're going to divide both sides by 0.75. So x is equal to, take our calculator, 42 divided by 0.75 gives us 56 students in the band. All right, so let's try another one. It says Bob's Tire Outlet sold a record number of tires last month. One salesman sold 165 tires, which was 60% of the tires sold last month. What was the record number of tires sold? All right, I'm actually going to have you try this one on your own. It's very similar to before. Notice that it does not say that you are increasing 60% or decreasing 60%. So you're going to use that percentage in this problem. So go ahead and try this one on your own. Hit play when you're done and make sure that you have the correct answer with the correct work. All right, so here we go. Bob's Tire Outlet sold a record number of tires last month. One of the salesmen sold 165 tires. That was 60% of, that word of means that whatever follows is your whole. So all of the tires sold in the month would be your whole, which means this would be your part. So our part is 165. Our percentage is 60%, or 0.60. Your whole is x. So part equals percent times whole. So 165 is equal to 0.60 times x. Divide both sides by 0.60. So 165 divided by 0.60 gives us 275, and that is the total number of tires. All right, let's go on to the next page. So this page says that Nick currently has 7,200 points in his fantasy baseball league, which is 20% more points than Adam. So how many points does Adam have? Okay, so notice that this says 20% more. That means that we have to take the 100 and add 20%. So we're talking 120% here. We're not just going to use 20 because that word more tells us that we're increasing. So let's set up our part, our percent, and our whole. So our percentage is 120, which is 1.2. We have Nick that currently has 72%, or I'm sorry, 7,200 points, and then we need to know Adam's. So since it's 20% more than Adam, Adam is our whole, Nick is our part, which is 7,200. Here's our little cheat sheet. So we're going to set up part equals percent times whole. Let's replace our values. So 7,200 is equal to 1.2 times x. Now we're going to divide by 1.2. So take your calculator. You're going to type in 7,200 divided by 1.2, which is 6,000. So this is Adam. Adam has 6,000. Now let's just make sure that makes sense. If Nick has more points than Adam, 7,200 more than 6,000, that is true. So here we go. That's Adam's points. All right, number 3. Kurt has driven 276 miles of his road trip, but has 70% left to go. How many more miles does Kurt have to drive to his destination? Now, this is how many he's driven, but this is how many he has left. So these have to match. So if he's driven 276 miles, what percentage of the trip does he have left? Well, we can find that by subtracting. So 100 minus 70 is 30. So he has 70% left, but 30% already completed. So let's set this up. So our percentage we're going to use is 30% because the part of the trip that he has driven is 276. So 30% he has driven. And we're going to try to find the total amount of trips or miles in the trip. So part is equal to percent times whole. Your part is 276. We're going to use 0.30. I never did that in the cheat box. Times our whole, which is x. Divide both sides by 0.30. So take your calculator. 276 divided by 0.30 is 920. Now, that's not our answer. This is the total amount of miles. The question says, how many more miles does he have left to go? Well, the total trip is 920 miles. He has driven 276, so 920 minus 220 or 76. We'll just do that right in the calculator. Gives us 644 miles left. All right, so number 4, Derek had a .250 batting average at the end of his last season, which means that he hit 25% of the times that he was up to bat. So he had 47 hits. How many times did he bat? What's the total amount of times he batted? So let's set up our part, percent, and whole. Now, this is 25% of the total times he's at bat. It wasn't increased by, it wasn't decreased by. So we're literally just going to use 25%, which is 0.25. We want to know the total amount of times he was at bat, which is x. And we know he had 47 hits. Here's my cheat sheet. If you want to pause it and do it on your own and check your answer, that's totally fine. If you want to watch me do it, you can do that as well. So here's our equation. I'm going to replace my part, my percent, my whole. Divide both sides by 0.25. Use your calculator. And gives you 188. And that's the total amount of times he was at bat. All right, so number 5, last one. Nelson used 35% of his savings account for the class trip. He used 140. So how much money was in there before the trip? So part, percent, and whole. Do I have to change this percent, or are we using 35%? It doesn't say it was increased by, decreased by, so we're just going to use 35%, which is 0.35. Of his savings account. Of means that whatever was in his savings account is the whole, which we don't know. And he used $140, which was 35%. So our part that he used was 140. Once again, if now that you want to have all your cheat sheet, if you want to do this on your own, go ahead. Hit play, make sure it's right. If not, you can follow along with me. So part equals percent times whole. Substitute in. And take your calculator and divide. All right, the next 2 pages are your problem set for this lesson. So go ahead and attempt those. We will go over them in class tomorrow. Good luck.